it is just so impossible to go through a coming out situation, especially in your young adulthood, and not be profoundly affected by it. And it paved the way for a lot of other moments of like, well, I guess this is just how it is. And I actually can't keep this inside of me anymore. There were so many moments where I was like, oh, my aunt's going to find out that I like have sex with women. And I'm like, well, guess so. Grandma? My grandma? Guess so. Just, we're rolling with it. Hi, I'm Kim.
And I'm Poncho,
And this is Now That You See It.
the show about the ideas hiding in plain sight,
The patterns underneath the patterns.
the stuff that quietly runs your life,
These are the conversations you can't stop thinking about.
and that you can't wait to send to a friend.
Because once you see it,
You can't unsee it. Hey,
oh,
Kim.
wait, there's no countdown. I forgot about this. Hey,
Hi. How's it going?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm so ready to talk about this topic. I am ready to come out about how I'm always coming out.
Awesome. Yeah, let's so this one is going to be, I'm imagining an episode where you're doing a lot of the talking and I'm doing a lot of the asking and listening. What's, in your words, what's the topic for today's conversation?
I have realized how often I I'm a queer person who's had to come out in like the traditional sense of the coming out phrase, but I've also realized how often I do that in ways that don't relate at all to my sexuality. And just like
Mm.
it's become something that you're often I find I'm faced with the like disclose or not, admit or not, self there's a phase of coming out in the like in the queer sense where you have to admit it to yourself first.
Yeah.
And that by itself sometimes is enough. Like that's the end of the story. But how often that also has to happen, both for me, for the clients I work with. And I think the other thing, so this is the like, wow, this actually happens a lot of like choosing to take that next step forward publicly. And then realizing that it's a choice. Like I do get to choose to come out in certain ways. And not everybody does. Not everybody who has something to disclose actually gets to choose that. And what that's like for me to say, oh, I have a choice around sharing or not. And
Mm.
the sort of privilege that comes with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the
And
one.
if you were to say how that's what it is that you can't unsee as you notice that
Mm.
trend in your life, what's the thing you can't unsee?
Yeah. My if I had to like put it into just a couple words, it's that this well, and I think there's gonna be a couple moments of like things I cannot see because I have a feeling you have a different take on this. So I might have my own mid-session, "Oh, that adds another thing I cannot see."
Sure.
But as we're starting, the thing I can't unsee is that there is, there are opportunities that I get, that my clients get, that are not obvious always to us, that they're in front of us, that they're opportunities to step into an identity, to step into something that uh, has been, or it's not even an identity, just an experience that is um, counter to what society, culture, family, by culture, I mean like literally it could be two people in your family,
Yeah.
just whatever's happening. There is the option to step into it publicly for some
Yeah.
people, and for some people there is not. Like it is a visible identity and you don't have a choice about it, but how you identify with, how you hold that. And that there often feel like, for me, and I'll talk a little bit about this on the podcast, but there often feel like these moments that I'm now like the things I can't unsee. There often feel like these moments of um, choosing to say something that actually like heals me. And that is the
Mm.
coming out process for me. When I
Mm.
came out as a teenager in my 20s, it wasn't just like, "Oh, this is a fact now." The courage it took to step into that not only heals me as a like, I get to be in my integrity, it allows other people to love and see me as I am and not love and see me as a different version, because then you're not actually loved as that version.
Yeah.
And that experience of like, I see myself as I am, other people see me as myself as I am, and they get the opportunity to love me as I am is the healing component of the coming out process. Because And this is no shade on anyone who's not ready to like do the public part of that yet, but at least admit it to yourself, whatever it is, that you get to be able to love yourself as you are through this, like, oh, okay, here's where I am, here's who I am, here's what I need right now. And taking that next step into actually coming out to other people, whatever it is, this is not a big queer thing. Coming out to other people allows them to see and love you as you are, which is its own both healing, but also, oh my God, flip on the growth switch, flip on the thriving switch, being able to like live your big life, being loved as you are is just, this is what coming out is to me. So
Yeah.
I realize that like I have framed a lot of my choices in this way, maybe because of my experience, but also because like this seems to be the path I'm living. And before we get into it, but, like, just to sort of set it up, this is sort of the path I've lived and the frame I have, but, like, we're gonna talk about this. This is different from your experience.
Yeah, yeah, and as we are talking about it, set this just kinda set the scene and, like, give
Mm.
more context. And this is actually something I don't know about you. I would
Mhm.
love to hear about your coming out story. Like, what was it what was it at what point in your life? How did it go that you realized, "Ah, I'm gay?" And, um, yeah, talk us through that.
Oh my god. Well, let me tell you, it has been funny to be raising kids right now because like, they're in 4th grade, and they ask about this. They're like, "Mommy, who's your celebrity crush? And who's your celebrity crush when you're in 4th grade?" And I was like, "It actually was, like, in sync." It actually was. I was like, there was a part of my brain that was like, heteronormative, right down the line, and, like, the but, like, I was still like, "I really like Sporty Spice, though." Sporty Spice would be a great friend to have at a sleepover. I couldn't quite put that together.
Yeah, yeah,
Blue
yeah.
Crush is really my favorite movie for the cinematics, and, like, I really like Christy from the Babysitters Club because it's a great book series. I
Uh-huh.
mean, so there were all these, like, affinities, but I had the coming out process was long and hard for me, in part because I didn't have a lot of models that this is, like, a way I could think, and so it took me a long time, but I do remember around 14, 15 being like, "It is great that I don't have the guts to come out because if I did, I'd be a lesbian." I'm like, how hilarious is that? And just being like, "Next," like this passing thought. Yeah.
So
But
you had the thought that if
mm,
you had the guts to come out, your identity would have to change. But because you didn't have the guts to do that, your identity was still what that it was still a heterosexual identity.
I mean, I grew up in like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you were
Catholic.
thinking about it as a choice that you could make if you had the guts to do it.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is really weird to think about. But there were when I tell you there was nothing, that it was this was not it wasn't an at all like a rabidly anti-gay environment. It was just like, "Nope,
Yeah.
nope,
Yeah.
nope, nope." Does and, it just wasn't an option, and it was the '90s. It wasn't this was like Ellen was reviled, like, just I mean, it was not good.
Yeah.
Jersey, Catholic, with like and I will say, I ended up going I went to Catholic school all the way through, like, my first year of college, and my high school was all girls, and this is the gayest community I think I've ever been a part of until I got to college. But, like, totally underground, and I was taught by nuns. They were all gay. I mean, like, this was the quietest gay community nobody talked about, but the vibe was there, and so there was something in the water about it, and yeah, and I was super athletic, super sporty, and just was, like, comfortable with that experience, like, with just being really, really athletic and really, really strong and a little bit different from everybody all the time. So I was always different from everybody all the time. My family, my friend group, I was just and there was, like, a year in 8th grade where I was like, "I'm gonna be the pretty popular girl this year." And I was like, I'm gonna have great handwriting, and I'm gonna And then I got so sick of it and I was like, I hate this. And I had to live it for a year to be like, no, no. Anyway, so uh, by the end of college, or sorry, by the end of high school, I was like, okay, I'd had enough like hookups with
Yeah.
girls that I was like, this isn't, yeah, like I was like hooking up with girls in high school
So
and I had boyfriends.
you were still straight, but you were hooking up with girls.
What's
At
the answer
least
to that question?
you thought of yourself as straight.
It was so playful. Like it
Okay.
was all so unserious and playful in high
Yeah.
school that I was like, we're all doing
Yeah.
this. And
Yeah.
I had a like really lovely, serious boyfriend in like sophomore, junior, senior year, and he was 2 years older. Side and hilarious story is that he gave me a teddy bear for Valentine's Day with hearts on it all over the place. And I swear to God, this thing was from like CVS. And I don't really throw things away. I just sort of kept it around. And Rose found it, one of my kids found it, and it has become her object. And she calls it Larry Bear because that was the name of my boyfriend. So on the
Aw.
regular, this child
Yeah.
asked me to sleep with Larry Bear because it's like, you sleep with me, like you sleep with Larry Bear. So I'm sleeping with my my
Yeah.
boyfriend, my own boyfriend's teddy bear. Larry Bear is alive and well. We have a
Wow.
fire safety plan for Larry Bear. Like, this is the other kid in the house. Anyway, really serious boyfriend. And then like we broke up and I was just sort of hooking up with chicks, girls, my I don't know. It was a thing. And I was like, I really like this. And then I just I don't know, I just got into the A basketball scene, not playing basketball, but sort of being a fangirl. And I was like, yeah, I think this is real.
Yeah.
And then I went to a very Catholic college because I got a scholarship and it was where my mom went. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna try it out. Catholic, 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 Catholic. And that's when that broke me. It was like my eighth grade year again of trying to be like the pretty popular girl with nice handwriting. I was like, I can't do the Greek life thing. I can't do the hypocrisy of party really hard on
Mm.
Saturday and then go to church on Sunday and live these like
Oh.
I couldn't do it at all. And I was rowing, like rowing saved me. And it was rowing and like the connections I made there that I was like, I like this, but I hate everything that's around it. I can't, I need to change colleges. And so I went to a school that was all women's and super queer. And that's when I was like, I cannot. This is like one of those decisions that make themselves. There isn't a, I don't care what happens. I can't. It's going to make me sick to live this life. I can't.
Yeah.
So I had a girlfriend and I came out and I said, oh, this is actually not my friend. This is my girlfriend. And the quick like end to that story is my like parents really, really wanted this to make it work in their heads. My mom had a really hard time. My dad was a little more like, sounds good, unconditional. And I think my mom was really scared for like what that
Yeah.
meant. But it took about 6 months for her to talk to me again because I think she just couldn't process it. But eventually, thank God, we were fine. She's great. I mean, and there is the profound. I mean, it is just so impossible to go through a coming out situation, especially in your young adulthood, and not be profoundly affected by it. And it paved the way for a lot of other moments of like, well, I guess this is just how it is. And I actually can't keep this inside of me anymore. There were so many moments where I was like, oh, my aunt's gonna find out that I like have sex with women. And I'm like, well, yep, guess so. Grandma? My grandma? Guess so. We just we're rolling with it. And they're great.
Yeah.
They're like to this day, which is a really, really lucky experience. So like I have that. It wasn't super easy, but they came to it and I don't know. So I could say so much more about it, but that's the like high points of Kim Comes Out
Yeah.
in 2020.
Awesome.
Yeah.
where I'm not gonna be able to move on without asking you about gay nuns.
Best nuns are gay nuns. It's
So,
so
yeah,
real though.
what like, yeah, to like, I mean, there's a lot of things I know about the Catholic Church, and some of them are great and some of them are not. I'm less familiar with the phenomenon of, gay
Gay nuns.
nuns. Yeah, what's the deal?
Listen, all I'm saying is if you
Uh,
wanted to live an undercover gay life, the nunnery is a sweet place to be
mm,
because, and like, I don't want to take it away from them. These are like true believers in like
sure.
deep, deep, profound spirituality. And if it's unsafe to be gay in your life, and you just want to be like, it's a good place to be, whether you are celibate or not. Who knows? All the Swiss cheese loopholes. But my experience, having been taught by and like been in the Catholic, I mean, like I'm super. My grandmother was a Catholic school teacher for 50 years. This is my world. Is I would be really surprised if I can name many that I many nuns I interact with. I would be really surprised if there wasn't a part of them, whether they admit it or not, that was like, yeah, like
Hmm,
I'm not what you call straight. And this is the right place for me because this is the right part of the world for me.
yeah.
However, as my assumptions, I know now, having worked with people who do work directly with the Catholic Church and directly with nuns, that this is now like explicit. That there are places where like you don't have to you don't have to take all the vows, but you can live with your partner and still be part of the lay ministry, your same sex partner, and be part of the lay ministry on church grounds, like in a nunnery is the wrong word, but I used it anyway, in a convent, but you are not taking the same vows.
Uh,
So it's pretty explicit.
yeah,
Um, and are in many of the orders of the Catholic Church, they're known for social justice. And so this has been a big part of like nun. Do you know about nuns on the bus?
no,
Yeah, it's like a social justice warriors, nuns got on the bus to protest many, many, many different just injustices, particularly racial justices and immigration and kid stuff. And so just would travel the country protesting, and all nuns. Those are my people. A lot of overlap with the queer community in that way. Supportive,
yeah, yeah. Awesome.
quietly supportive.
Love that. Okay, so that's gay nuns. Coming back to your coming out, um, it sounds like you came out to yourself gradually. There's kind of this,
Hmm.
like slow realization process.
How many times can you hook up with girls and be like, I'm totally straight?
Yeah, right. So there was, yeah, like it's almost like you got ahead
The
of
evidence, yeah.
yourself. Yeah, like your actions were already in alignment before you were cognitively there. And then tell me more about whether it was an all at once thing or also more of a gradual thing with the world.
Yeah. I'm not great at keeping secrets. I mean, I'm good at like if you ask me to, I'll keep your secret. But I am not particularly good at doing it for myself.
Mm,
Um, and so I think it was I have a story about how quickly I came out to people. I think if you interview people at the time, they were like, finally. I'm pretty sure I left a pretty clear paper trail
yeah, everyone else
for a
saw it too.
long time. I think so. Yeah. I mean, I was like hanging around with girls who were already out and who were like
Mhm.
more visibly queer than I was. My mom was like, who are these people? And then like um because my friend group at that point, like it was athletics, I was like sort of nerdy AP classes, but like a lot of athletics. It was getting queerer and queerer in sort of a tongue in cheek, like wink wink kind of way that it was it was like cool. So there was this enclave where it was just like, this is what we do. So that wasn't hard. It was harder. It was just a lot harder to come out to my family. Like I didn't,
Yeah.
like my cousins were, it's not Roman Catholic. Like this is the Orthodox Catholic. version. Intense. And it was harder to think about that. And so I think there was a lot of all my cousins to this day are they'll hear this podcast and be like, "Mhm." I'm sure they were like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
like you did the tomboy thing." I remember my grandmother being like, "Eventually Kim will grow out of this tomboy thing." And like I sometimes I wear heels, but like,
Yeah.
I got a part of it and all of it. So it was sort of like gradual in my head to be able to say, yeah, this is like affirmatively true.
Mhm.
But I'm pretty sure the world was picking up on the signals that I didn't know I was throwing down.
Yeah.
And I think that's how a lot of this works is that like it's just really hard to for me and I think for a lot of people to hold secrets that are orthogonal to your identity without it leaking out in some way.
Yeah.
Like it just takes so much energy to be that tight
Yeah.
without it in that kind of performance. I'm not, thank God, honestly, thank God, I'm not actually good at that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, this aspect of your identity was already there and established and visible to other people
I think
before
so.
you got to the point where you embraced it and, kind of embodied it fully.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I played with a lot of presentations throughout my life to see what fit. Some and some like really fit. And I remember like as a kid being like, why can't to my mom, probably like 9. Why can't I shop in the boys section for underwear? Because I was so committed to at that phase of my life being like, I am not wearing dresses. I'm nope, nothing. I'm gonna be super masculine presenting. And she was like, you don't have a penis. And I was like, fair. Got it.
I mean, boxers are comfy. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Under my uniform? Hell yeah.
totally. Okay. So that was your coming out, and in conversations we've had since then, you've mentioned that you've realized you've continued to come out at different points in
Yeah.
your life. It's almost like you don't just come out about your sexuality, you've come out about other things.
Mhm.
Tell me more about that. What other things have you had the same coming out experience about?
Yeah. My I my identity developed, and we've talked about this too on the podcast. My identity developed, as a kid, as we all do, based on what worked in kid environment, in kid land, and what my kid brain could absorb. And one of the things that identities that I took on through all of this is yes, contrarian, yes, like I'm the black sheep, all these things, not black sheep, but like just a little different from everybody else. But the biggest one that affected like everything thereafter was I am the safe harbor. I am the safe one. I am the one who will accept, adapt, be there, say whatever you want, be whoever you want. I'm there. I'm there for you. And been a really important identity for me, like as a coach, as a person, as a friend, as a parent, all these things. But I think it became everything. There wasn't a role for me to choose myself and be safe for myself while it being less comfortable for other people. And so because of that, I had to so many different relationships with my family when family stuff got really hard and I just had to say, actually, this is not okay anymore. I don't It's been okay for a long time. I've tolerated it for a long time. This behavior is no longer okay.
Hmm.
And then to say like, and I'm going to change when I visit you, how I visit you, how much you're able to visit me, and just like some really things that Safe Harbor wouldn't do. And having to step into that and say like, actually, the version you've known of me to date isn't the real me. It's a mask. It's something else. And this
Yeah.
is the real me.
So safe harbor, I'm thinking about it as, like you said, show up with what you've got. You can, basically use me as a sounding board, maybe somebody to vent with, someone to hold your secrets. And what I'm hearing is you started setting up boundaries around things like physically when somebody is able to show up, or behaviors? Was it explicitly like, I will no longer act as safe harbor when you have these things to share? Or was it other kinds of behaviors having, like color that
Yeah.
picture a little bit more for me?
So it was, I don't think I had the language of safe harbor until quite recently, like the last year or two, where I was like, oh, interesting. Because I've been embodying this, but I haven't had words for it. And so before the words come, and so this is like the coming out process. You don't always have the words to describe what you're like coming out as. You just sort of like start embodying it along the way, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, I think I'm this thing because I've
Uh,
been doing these things, and that's felt better than this other thing, but I didn't know what that was. Just like these actions start to lead up. So specifically, there's a close member of my family who for a long time, I was the person who it ended up being triangulating at the time. At the times, it really felt like I am the person who's going to like receive anger, receive blow ups, be the like, help you make sense of your feelings,
yeah.
be the one who's like, doesn't matter what you say, like, okay, we'll work it out. You can't say that, but like, it's okay, sort of jokey jokey. And then translating, because that would happen to me, that would happen to other people too. And they'd be like, F this guy, man.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, no, 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 but here's the greater context. And like, this is the things that are going on, triangulating and like codependent, all kinds of stuff. And so to finally say, this isn't okay. And please, to this person, I am not available for you saying bad things about other people either.
Uh,
And I will not explain them to you. I will not explain you to them.
yeah.
You you may only say kind and respectful things to me. And when you don't, I'll let you know. And if you can't, and this is the boundary, because that's the request. The
Sure.
boundary is I will not be available for connection if this continues. I won't be able to come visit you. I won't be able to open my home to you. And it it's been a rocky road, but it has helped a lot because it's allowed me to be the person I actually am and to develop this whole new relationship with this person so they can love me as I am, as
Yeah.
opposed to like the version I was that they thought they. And I think in that, just to keep following up on it, in that I realized that by not coming out as I am, which is somebody who has needs, standards, and a low tolerance for angry outbursts, um, by not coming out as that person, not only was I continually like developing an unsafe relationship with myself, my whole body being like, oh, we can't, self to self, me to me, we can't trust you to navigate challenging personalities because you seem to always just let them be challenging. You don't put up boundaries and you get us unsafe. And so I had this whole like just inner conflict about what that was like for myself.
Yeah.
And also, this person and other people with whom I continue this behavior just continued the behavior because it was enabling it. It was enabling the like addiction to it, which meant it was bad for other people too. And so just like when I came out as queer, I could say like, hey, this is me and I'm okay. It paved the road for other people to be able to do that. And for these other people in my life to be like, oh, she's queer and she's okay. Okay. I guess that's okay.
And then most recently, you
Another
talked
big
to me
coming out.
about yeah, you talked to me about kind of, and this time of a unique one in that you came out to your kids,
Hmm.
which that's a completely different relationship dynamic, right? To have to do that with your children. Can you say more about
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not that I'm gay. I'm quite aware.
Yeah,
With those two moms in the house.
there's 2 moms. I already know that,
Although
yeah.
we do really have to review it every once in a while of them
Yeah.
being like, "You're gay?" Like, "Yes."
The whole time.
The
Yeah.
whole time. So I came out to them recently on I was separating, from their other parent, from their other mom. And the coming out part of it for me was really looking at them and being like, the person you have known me as in this unit, in this family unit, is different from who I actually am and who I'm becoming. And I'm like stepping outside of it, almost both physically, but like really literally in front of them and saying, I need something different. And I'm going to take up the space that it requires to say something different, to be something different, to do something different. And it was one of the hardest moments to like tell them and have them look back at me. And I felt it. I felt a, an eye lock connection with me that I have not felt since, I had not felt before. And it was like peer to peer. Holy shit, she's different. And that was the moment that I was like, I think I just came out to my kids about being somebody who is different from who they thought I was and
Yeah.
has a challenging new identity of needing something different, needing like a bigger life or a different life or just like something that is not this. And it's going to be really complicated. But I actually have a kind of adult level depth that they haven't seen and they're going to begin to see a lot more of. And since then, as we've spent more time here and just like together with the three of us, and I'm doing things that I didn't do in the house, like light the candle because scents are just challenging for everybody. Or just like, I don't know, it's, I host dinner parties. It's just, I'm like doing different things and I'm more effusive and valuable and I'm like socializing, connecting a lot more than I was before. They're getting to know this version of me. And it really does feel a lot like when I was first coming out and went from like, before you come out, it's a really scary time and you're pretty small and you're just like terrified.
Yeah.
And after you do, the weight lifts and you're like, it's still really awkward because you have to say things to your grandmothers about sex. But it, um, it is a different kind of awkward. It's like, yeah, this is a worthy pain. I'm into this. I'm into this.
Yeah.
And so that's what it's felt like, light.
Yeah. How was it different? I'm thinking about with other adults, especially with adults who are your elders, so to speak, right? Your mom, your parents, your grandma, whatever. There is a dynamic there where inherently, culturally, we almost like seek their approval. That they are our elders. And as we get older, I think a lot of us, coming back to your just world hypothesis, as kids, we have to see them as having their shit together and being an adult who's going to be able to create stability and safety for us. And as we get older, we're dispelled of some of those notions and we recognize that maybe our parents were walking dumpster fires in certain aspects of their lives and just like could not see it as kids. But they're still your parents. They're still your grandma. The tables are churned with your kids. Your kids are relatively powerless
Yeah.
in a lot of the ways that they relate to you. You call the shots. You tell them what's right and wrong. They look to you for approval. So how has that coming out process been different? Comparing what it was like to tell your grandma that you've been hooking up with women and telling your kids that you're actually not going to be the part of the family structure that they've always known you to be.
Great question. I was going to say heartbreak, but it's the kind of heartbreak that's like break your heart open so that it may never close to the rest of the world, Mary Oliver kind of heartbreak, because it does break a little bit of them. It breaks something in them. I thought life was going to be this way, and it's not. And they're still processing it, but there's an element in this that's I didn't have to care. I didn't have to caretake. I didn't have to. I sure thought I wanted to. My grandparents and my family and my parents, and I wanted to make it okay for them. but that wasn't actually my role, and it really is my role right now. Um,
Yeah.
I really do have to choose my words really carefully with them because, which is often very easy, thankfully, because what I want to share with them is just true. That like there isn't a loss of love for them or even between us. It's we are better when we are separate, and we are better parents, and we are better friends, and we are better family members when we are separate in separate spaces. And just to continually show up in my act as to make that true. So it's not just words. But there is a much higher level of responsibility where this is not just like, let me wave my pride flag,
Yeah.
you know? I have dependents who have developing brains and cannot tell the difference between their parent defining and asserting their like healthy autonomy and rejection of them.
Yeah.
So their brains will, like, if we're not super careful, their brains will say, mommy is doing this because I'm bad. And that's just how brains work.
Totally.
And so there's a ton of scaffolding that has come from 0 to 9.5 till now, but particularly like through these conversations and just like we spend a lot of time of our parenting time and our emotional energy with them, making sure they know their unconditional positive regard. No matter what mood I'm in, they walk in the room, I am delighted. I am delighted to see them every frigging morning when they wake up at 5:45 and I'm there, like, delighted. And I actually am, like, I don't have to fake it, but that consistency of every single time they wanna talk to me about Roblox, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Every single time they make a mistake and shout or scream or do something, and, like, it is a positive response. It is a, like, yes, these are the boundaries, and also you were a good kid, and now let's go play. And that has set them up to say, we have unconditional positive regard and like reinforcing that through the actions of this has happened, we are separating, and also these delightful experiences can also continue to happen because you delight me every day. Just being you, you delight me.
Yeah.
Which is why I went to the recorder concert tonight instead of going to my networking event and watched them in their like little fourth grade joy played Ode to Joy. It was amazing. I loved it. But I don't
Yeah.
have to do that with my grandparents, you know?
Totally.
I can just yeah, very different.
Yeah. I mean, your grandparents, the expectation is they're going to show up as people who are fully responsible for themselves.
Yeah.
And with your kids, you're still responsible for them.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
and
like a
not every oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's the boundary dynamics there are different.
Not everybody gets the experience I had, and even my experience involved people having complicated feelings about this that really weren't about me or for me, and trying to put it on me. Like, there was a lot of that, of
Yeah.
projected stuff, and I probably internalized a ton of it. Um, and there's internalized homophobia that I have, there's internalized drive to assimilate that I have.
Mhm.
The gay marriage movement, man, the gay marriage movement is a thing. Like, the first political act that we really, like, nailed down is marriage, and that means that the way the gays assimilate is through marriage, or, like, and assimilate. The way it's a really, really conventional approach to integration and acceptance. Like, of all the things we could have fought for, housing, pay, non-discrimination, marriage is really important, but that allowed people to, like, have a channel to access experiences that, to drop the gay agenda.
Mhm.
But there is a gay agenda. Like, there are rights that are not available to gay, trans, non-binary folks, and putting marriage at the center of that fight meant that the pathway towards integration was through a really heteronormative institution with a lot of fucking baggage. Like, a lot of baggage, and this is, like, what you had to do to be it's okay to be gay if you're married or, like, on the path to that, and that's
Yeah.
sort of I'm over dramatizing, but in 2004, that's really what it felt like.
Mhm.
It's okay because now you can get married, and, like, "Oh." what if I don't want any part of that patriarchal institution
Yeah.
that carries all kinds of negative history? So I think part of what was happening is also me just sort of choosing, I hate like it matters a lot to me to be accepted. And because I have this really inclusive and tight family and I wanted them to love me. And I was like, then we're going to do that thing that makes that
Yeah.
possible.
Like, "Look, we do it just like you do it," kind of a vibe. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm normal. I wear a
Yeah.
dress.
I could see that side to it. I could also see the pressure from the gay community, and tell me if this was or wasn't a thing for you, but I could see a dynamic in which the gay community is like, "Hey, you get married as a way to help this community step into this new right that we've had to fight to get for ourselves. And if you don't do that, then it's almost like you're not doing your part in the work of, like the social work to actually like fully own this right for ourselves." To what degree did that show up for you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a great question. Yeah, big time. There it is. It was a really, it's like stand up politics. It's like respectability politics. It's the like, you gotta represent us well, look good.
Yeah.
Like, don't let the freak flag fly. And there was a lot of that pressure of like, I took the big leap to be like, I'm gay, I'm queer, I'm not gonna do all these and like I've always been a little different, but like there's a big part of me that really wants to be loved and accepted. And I I don't want I just sort of want to like be like, I'm just not gonna marry the dude. But like, can we just forget about all the other stuff and can we just have nice family parties and stuff and come to my wedding and whatever? Can we just
Yeah.
forget about all this? And just like let me live my life, but like not talk about it. So that was like there was an impulse there, and I was like, "Oh, the way to do this is also to show up for the gay community and like take my rights. These are my rights. I get to be married. I get to be like do all these things." And honestly, I would have done it anyway. I would have fought for it. Like it is actually marriage, no matter what I'm going through right now, is a vital and important part of like I don't know how I think about families and couples and it just was, like, also a very significant political tool at the time, and so it became really loaded. So I also didn't feel like I got to freely choose it. It was like, "Get in line, go to the courthouses because we get to do this
Yeah.
cool thing
We're
now,"
all
and, like,
doing this
how
now. Yeah.
exciting that this is my act of resistance
Yeah. Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
s
It's like
so
voting.
it didn't feel freely chosen. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of social pressure to vote because you have the right to vote. And so you better exercise that right to vote because otherwise, what does that say about, you know, how important it is if
Ooh,
you don't do it?
yeah, totally. No, we should have a podcast about that. I'm curious about your
Oh,
voting
yeah.
takes.
I'll do a whole podcast on my take on voting. Earlier, you said the people you work with. This is a dynamic. Burnout, I'd imagine, is a thing that's hard to admit to the rest of the world. We don't talk about our clients explicitly, but to the best of my knowledge, the people you're working with in coaching is burnout dynamics. They're burnt out at work and they're trying to figure out, the people that I know are burnt out sometimes don't even know they're burnt out. They just know that they're miserable in their lives and they don't know what's wrong.
Yeah,
And coming out to themselves, admitting I'm burnt out, I'd imagine is maybe a difficult thing for some people, especially people who've been really high functioning and their
yeah.
identity is tied up in that. And then admitting to their friends, family, most importantly, their coworkers, their boss, that they're burnt out, that comes with a lot of social risk.
It does.
How does that play out? Yeah, how do you like draw a bridge from you coming out as queer to the work you do with people in burnout coaching?
Yeah, it's part of my story too is having been burnt out as a extremely high capacity, like crazy athlete. Like I could suffer with the best of them. I can like work crazy nights and like long days. But like the COVID, I was in the governor's office, the governor response team, 7 days a week for all the hours, and just like missing time with my kids. Did it for me, But even at the end, I'm like numb to the world, couldn't quite admit that I was burnt out and just kept like shuffling myself. And so it took another year to be like, to research it and be like, "Oh, this is a physiological phenomenon. And I am just as susceptible as anybody else. Why would I not give myself the gift of acknowledging it and then treating it as it is?" And that was a coming out of like, oh, you're not immune just because you have a crazy high capacity for bullshit in the past. And I don't anymore. We talked about the gift of denial being lifted. Just because you have that and that's how it's a survival skill, that's how you've been known, doesn't mean that's optimal or that you have to continue on that. Like you don't have to suffer just because it was like fun one time.
Yeah.
And so then I help people not only from a burnout coaching perspective, just be able to physiologically identify the symptoms of burnout, not to say you failed in your capacity, but there are specific interventions for each one of these things. And if we try something else, those things are going to keep coming back. So,
Mhm.
like emotional exhaustion, physical exhaustion, apathy, and self inefficacy are the hallmarks. If you just change jobs, those are going to continue to be there. If you just
Yeah.
move and pull a geographic, some things might get better for a while, but they're going to still be there. And you won't really know why because it's the end stage of like chronic stress. It's what it does to your brain. Anyway, a bigger part actually of the coming out part of coaching, burnout coaching. Burnout by itself is, but not everybody comes burnt out specifically or is seeking burnout support. What ends up happening is that they come out using my language about things like late diagnosed neurodivergence, trauma, chronic illness, invisible disabilities. All these things have been in their closets for a long time,
Mhm.
usually to themselves. And either they've recently gone through the process of realizing, like, oh, I have been fighting this for so long. I'm starting to realize this is real for me. And then once you open up to a truth, it's not like it's all sunshine and rainbows after that, like immediately. There is there's a period where things get pretty friggin' dark because
Yeah.
all the stories collapse, all the defense mechanisms collapse, and there's a physical collapse often associated with that. So like, yes, coming out represents often a lightening in energy, but in the immediate aftermath of, for instance, recognizing you are autistic or ADHD late in life, and like I've only associated that with shame, badness, laziness, weirdness, and
Yeah.
now I have to take that on. There's also a ton of grieving that has to happen, and that is a physical process.
Yeah.
That is an exhausting physical process.
Yeah.
And so part of what happens in burnout coaching is the coming out process. We add on, I don't call it the coming out process, but to the extent there is a like step into your identity so that you can get the gifts and treatments that you are offered from that. Part of it is the grieving of the time spent out of that identity and what that you had used the word of integrity earlier in our pre-recording, but what it cost you without shame, without saying this is shameful. There was a cost to not recognizing it, having it not be seen. What does that cost? How do you like honor that now? And that helps with the eventual place of getting to the point of like, oh, I did finally come out. I can feel a lightness of this. It's
Yeah.
hard to get there if you don't go through a grieving process.
Yeah. 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 Hmm. We talked in one of our earliest episodes on expertise, right? What it is to be an expert in something. And as one grows on that journey to being masterful, to being an expert, you start on this mountain of feeling like you're confident in your expertise, feeling like you know what you're doing, when in reality you don't. And you're unaware of yourself, ignorant to all of the ways in which you have no idea. So,
Yeah.
and then the moment comes when you realize, oh, I really don't know that much about this topic at all. I'm really relatively new to all of this. There are all of these people who are so much more knowledgeable, so much more skilled than I am. And you come off of this high into what's called the valley of despair.
Oh,
And it's terrible,
yes.
right?
It's
And then it
terrible.
takes this like long, slow, deliberate slog out of the valley of despair to get to true mastery, true knowledge, expertise. And I'm seeing parallels here in terms of one's identity, whether it's, coming out as queer or admitting to yourself that you're burnt out. You've been living in this place where you feel like you've got it all together and you know who you are. And something comes along that completely shatters your self perception, your understanding of who you are in your life and how efficacious you are, or how in alignment you are with who you are at your core. And it puts you in this valley of despair of like, oh shit. Like you said, all of my coping mechanisms are gone. All of the ways that I knew to be myself in the world don't work anymore. And
Yeah.
you flounder in that valley of despair for a while. What I've seen in coaching, and I'm curious if this is, how this shows up in burnout coaching,
Yeah.
is even though you find yourself in the valley of despair, you also you do the introspective work, you do the research, and you realize that's what it was happening. Like, I was carrying this low grade, something is off feeling for years and years and years. And I now have a concept and a framework to understand it. I have names for these things. That was called burnout. That was called towing the line with depression. That was called being
Languishing.
gay and not, yeah, like languishing,
Yeah.
sure. That was called being gay and hooking up with girls, not knowing that that's what I was doing, right? I now have the terms, I have the framework, and even though it feels like I've just, exploded my life, I am on my path. I'm on the way to expertise, to being more masterful in my self-awareness, to, being able to grow the skills needed and find a way of being that allows me to not be out of sync with myself. So with that, like what does it look like for people who are coming out of the valley of despair from burnout? What are the new skills they're developing, or what are the, like in what ways does it feel like, you know, from your perspective, when does it start to click
Mm.
for them and not feel like they're just fully wallowing in despair?
Man, it's a great question because not everybody has to hit the low.
Okay.
Like, you don't have to bottom out and just be like, "Oh my god, white flag, save me, like, I got nothing."
Yeah.
You can come into this and say, like, "I have a spidey sense that this is if I don't do something, this is not gonna go well." Like, you can
Uh,
it's a little prevention, it's a little like, "Something's this is not good. Something's off." I'm, like, trying to hold up the whole world, but something is cracking, and, like, if I don't fix this soon or figure out new skills, like what got me to here won't get me to there, I need new skills, then this will all crack. And almost what I've seen almost to a client is no matter how you enter that experience, there is just still a valley of despair of like, to let go of that? Or like,
yeah.
"Mm, I really liked being that person. I really liked being known as a really capable and responsible one. Or I really liked being known, being seen, seeing myself as the like safe harbor, the person of last resort, or whatever it ends up being. I don't want to let go of that high achieving personality. And like there is a valley. Coming out of it as you start to in my experience, both from like sort of the traditional coming out perspective and this stepping into a new identity as an adult perspective, is when you get to the inflection point, for the first time, you're thinking about the future with genuine, uh, loose bodied hope. Meaning, in the valley, nothing makes sense. You're sort of like first stage of change. It's all dark and the inside of a caterpillar, sort of gooey. There are no real rules. Nothing really makes sense. It looks dark. And this is like sort of describing the bottoming out experience, but it also can be the like one little part of your identity that has been hooking you to an old way of being has to literally die. Like there is a death that has to happen. It's it can be dark. The shift is when I notice that people are talking about the future not with like a desperation, but with a like sense of peace. It's gonna come. I'm not worried about foreboding joy of like foreboding joy meaning like the other shoe's gonna drop,
Yeah.
but moving into the sense of like I am confident that the future will come. There will be some peace in it. I don't really know what it's gonna look like. I don't really know how I'm gonna get there, but like I feel it, I see it.
Uh,
And that was a shift I remember making as well with coming out of like right after being like, I can't believe I just did that. Oh my God. And just being like, I want to pass the fuck out. I want to disappear. I want to like become the carpet. Oh my God.
yeah.
This is
Yeah.
so cringe. And just then it kept happening and happening and happening. And eventually you're like, I'm just going to be a person who has relationships that are challenging just like all y'all's and are rewarding just like all y'all's. And that's just going to be it. And
Yeah.
it's going to be with female identified or like assigned female birth people. I didn't have that language either. In the 2004 7, it was, you were just gay or straight. There was no other name. So I'm up to date on my terms.
What I took away from that is you find hope. Like hope starts to bloom.
But you believe it. I
Yeah,
think
it's like
that's the difference is like,
a settled hope as opposed to
yeah,
like
it's a settled.
you were talking about like frantic or joy or whatever you used for the word joy. Of like, ha, this is great, but like, is this for real? Is it going to stick around? Like, is this about to explode on me all over again? When that goes away and it feels like, okay, this is steady, this is stable, and it feels hopeful, and I don't have to force myself to feel that hope. You're starting to
And
turn the corner.
importantly, yeah, you're trying to record it. And importantly, that is not fixed. Like that will come and go.
Yeah,
It's hard.
sure.
You know, like it'll cut,
Yeah,
but tasting it is the beginning.
cool.
Can I ask you some questions?
Yeah, I was about to
Did
say
you have one at the tip of your tongue?
we've been I've been grilling you for the better part of the last hour. So I was just going to ask you, what haven't we said or where haven't we gone that, yeah, that would feel helpful for you to explore this dynamic of, like always coming out, including
I
asking me questions.
It really would be helpful because I have this sense that I have a lens on the world because I am who I am. I live the life I've lived.
Yeah.
I don't think you have the same lens, and I'm curious what it's like to be somebody who, from what I gather, hasn't needed to come out in any of the ways we've talked about. What is that like?
Yeah. Yeah. I think when I think about like, have I ever come out in the way that you're explaining and talking about it? I've gone through similar process. Like I burnt out at a job. I
Mm,
remember, early 2024, late 2023, being really burnt out, being and I ended up working at a co-working space where I wasn't near a window. It's the first time in my career where I've not been near a window. And I think that contributed to towing the line with depression because I wasn't getting sunlight and I wasn't getting vitamin D. So I remember gradually being like, something's wrong. Gregory Alan Isakov's new album came out and like listening to it at 4 o'clock at the end of the workday. And you're like, I'm bawling listening to this album. What's going on?
wait, what
Um,
was the album? Gregory. Did I make that?
Gregory Alan Isakov.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Album called Appaloosa Bones. And I mean, it's like, it's heavy music, it's emotional, but I don't have a track record of just like breaking down crying listening to a song for the first time. So I started noticing in myself, my relationships are suffering because of the way I am outside of work. As a result of the way work is impacting me, my emotional regulation is off. Um, One of the big pivotal moments for me was my coach asked me, "When's the last time you felt joy?" And
Mm.
I couldn't remember the last time I had felt
Mm.
joy. I couldn't bring up a memory of that. I could remember times in my life when I'd felt joy, but not any time recently. And I realized like, yeah, this is burnout. She's like, yep, looks, smells, sounds like burnout. It's probably burnout. And towing the line with depression because of that burnout. And because of depression happens when you suppress things like anger. So, suppressing the anger of the unfair dynamics I was dealing with in the workplace that were also leading to burnout. And as I built this model of self-understanding, like, oh, this is through coaching, this is what I'm going through. These are the dynamics that are at play as I show up to work every day. I started to, you know, give them names and to be able to see them in myself more clearly from like a third person objective perspective. There was no gap between that realization and should I tell people about this at work? Or
Mm.
do I start telling and externalizing this in my social circles? It's just like, nope, this is what it is, and
Yeah.
that's the part of the coming out that is not a dynamic I when I stopped drinking alcohol, same thing. Like, the moment I saw it, I was like, "Cool, I gotta change who I am. Gotta change the way I talk to people, gotta change the way I relate with people." So there was no gap between an internal coming out or, to use other wording, the internal process of realizing and making sense of what was happening and the external process of sharing it with the world. Mm. And that got sloppy. I think if I'd waited or if I'd been more
That's what I
strategic
ask you about.
about it, then maybe it would have been better received by some people. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten laid off at some point. But like, I don't know. I just don't operate that way. Like, the moment I start to see things for what they are, I'm like, okay, well, I have to, I just like automatically start behaving and communicating accordingly. And that's the part of the coming out that I can't relate to from a first person perspective.
I love this. I love this because it really does highlight, like, a different mode of being, and when I'm, like, I'm so grateful to be around because it's like, I'm like, "I want more of that." Like, there's no gap between internal realization and telling the world, "Amazing!" Like, I need I want more of that in my life, and there are there's no gap between the internal and the external, but there can be a long lead up to the internal for people. So even if it takes time to get there and you're like, "Once I'm there, I'm, like, telling the world,"
Yeah.
which is amazing. Have you experienced times in your life where it's just taken its time to get to, like, sort of fully seeing, or you had clues, any internal resistance to, like, owning it, admitting it, whatever it was?
I think, again, coming back to work and also relationships, it can be daunting to take action. And then actually, it's the same dynamic. This job is the fucking worst. Like, this isn't my last job, but a job I had. I've done enough research on narcissistic personality disorder. Not somebody who's a narcissist, not somebody who is just, is self unaware and bad at considering other people, like straight up narcissistic personality disorder. CEO has it. Um, or like my last job, like fully, totally burnt out, burnt to a crisp, like never going to bounce back and be as effective and productive as I was in my first year at that role before things started catching fire. Relationships, knowing this relationship isn't this is not the right person for me.
Mm.
Um, Having that clarity and then taking action, even though I have it, and even though I'm externalizing it, I'm telling the narcissistic CEO, like, dude, you cannot yell at your mom in a business meeting to the point where she starts crying in front of the rest of the leadership team. You can't do that. Like, it's unacceptable. I will not work in a culture where that happens. So I'm not I'm not keeping it to myself. I'm still externalizing it, but I'm not taking action to end it when I know it's time for it to end.
Mm.
So that's been the thing that I have a pattern of, like, being scared to create stability in my day to day by leaving a job without an alternate source of income lined up, or leaving a relationship, not knowing whether I'm going to be, like, attractive to other people if I'm single again, and then
Mm.
just sticking around, living with the cognitive dissonance of, like, I hate this, it's bad for me, but I'm not leaving.
Yeah. So I remember you saying, I sit in the cognitive dissonance for a long time.
Yeah,
So I sit with the two truths, the two opposing truths. I don't like this and I'm here and I'm not changing it.
yeah,
Having that be your reality for a long
yeah,
time.
yeah.
What I'm sure there are people like you. I am a person like you. What advice do you want to offer either to yourself or to other people about like if you find yourself in this situation, how to not just get out of it, because sometimes it's not get out of bowl right away. Like you really are in that role, that world for a reason,
Yeah.
but how to like evaluate it, see it for what it is.
Yeah. I don't like I haven't gotten to the point where I can say I don't do this anymore. There's
Yeah,
not a dynamic in my life where I'm doing it currently, but were I to find myself there again? Actually, no. I did find myself there again recently. I was doing contract work for an organization and their entire business setup was chaos. The person in charge of the company, it's like a very small startup organization. The person in charge of the company was completely obsessed with optics, with how things look to the world outside. It's very interested in being the founder of a successful startup, but not doing what it takes to build a successful startup as a founder. And they were doing all certain
totally.
like they were doing all sorts of stuff bass backwards. And about 2 months in, well, the first week of working there, I realized this was not what it was advertised to be to me. Like, the degree to which this company is fundamentally set up incorrectly is literally at the foundations of, like, the software tools they're using are the wrong tools for the application they're using them for. The guy they've got in charge of doing business operations has no leadership management or great like emotional regulation leadership skills. He's a business development expert, and he's just the only person who didn't quit and leave. So, and because you as the founder don't want to get up to your elbows in this work, you made him the operations expert. He doesn't know what he's doing. It's bad. So I have found myself there recently. What changed? And I think the big picture takeaway I have for people who have these, patterns is, one, if you've noticed the pattern in yourself, like, get really aware of when and how you've repeated that pattern. Even if your behavior doesn't change, having the
Mm.
self-awareness of, like, "Oh, I'm doing it again,"
Mm.
that's good information, and it helps with the "something is wrong, but I don't know why" dynamic, which is another level of suffering unto itself of, like, I know something is wrong in my life, but I can't put my finger on it. You get to the point where you're like, "I know something is wrong with my life, and that's exactly it right there, and I've watched this movie before because I did it in my last job." It just gives you a little bit more sense of agency and a little bit
Mhm.
more of a sense of, like, I can control my destiny here because I'm aware of what I'm doing. The way that it leveled up for me in the most recent time it happened in a job was I wasn't fully relying on that one job for all of my income.
Oh, totally.
I was contracting with them as a coach and leadership expert, and I was also doing some account development work. But I have my own practice, and I also coach with another organization that's very well run, and like, doing coaching at a much higher level. Coaching with, like, the biggest engineering firm in the world and NASCAR and like, very large organizations. And so I just, guys, like, I had a conversation with the founder at this organization and said, here are all the things that I'm seeing you do in your organization, and here are all the ways that this organization operates that I'm not willing to engage with anymore because I've done it in the past. And I've done it enough times to see it when it starts to happen. I'm not willing to build the plane as you fly it. I'm not willing to operate in a way that feels like, to use another euphemism, like we're keeping the wheels on the wagon just barely as we barrel down the road. Like, no, I want to be a part of an organization that is intentionally designed, has good project management, and doesn't put the burden of its poor planning on the nervous system of the people working in this team.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I bailed. Like
And
I started,
yeah.
I started like, in a very respectful and responsible way. I started saying, okay, well, we have to offboard me. And we agreed to how that was going to go. And I held up my share of that agreement. And in that process, started getting the cold shoulder more and more and more. And then there was one day where somebody communicated with me in a way that was just completely unprofessional and just unacceptable in terms of
Oh,
how I expect people to communicate with me. And on that day, I said, well, this is where I end. There are a few things left to do that you were waiting on me to do. I've gotten you 90% of the way to offboarding me, and you get to figure out the other 10% because I don't let people talk to me in the way that you are now communicating with me.
yep.
So
That's
yeah, I guess
great.
that's how it's changed. That's how, I've done that. Long story short, develop that awareness in yourself
Mm.
and look for opportunities to have your actions match that awareness. Um, possibly systematically. Like if you're in a job and you want to leave, start looking for work instead of just staying stuck in your job and being really dissatisfied with it. It's easier to leave a job when you have another one lined up, or it's easier to leave a contract position when you have other things lined up. So give yourself the power to be able to leave and not feel like you are, tied into that job because of holding golden handcuffs, or give yourself the ability to leave that relationship because you've been doing all of this stuff to ensure you are an attractive significant other to other singles once you become single again. Um, so yeah, basically set yourself up for success and to feel like, yeah, I can leave and it's going to be okay.
Totally. I mean, what's standing out to me about this for you is you know yourself well, and it sounds like I mean, we all come to know ourselves over time, but it sounds like you have known yourself well and accepted yourself at each stage pretty instinctively, and that has helped.
Yeah.
And like, because it's hard to do all those things if you A, don't know yourself, and B, even if you know yourself, you might not accept it. But it sounds like you've got both of those, which is part of the coaching work that we all do, but also just, I think, part of your personality. Like, I think this has just been my sense. This has been part of you for a long time. Yay, nay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For a lot of reasons that, like we would do another hour worth of podcast to unpack all of them.
Yeah.
But
Maybe
uh,
that's your episode.
yeah, the one last thing I wanted to talk about, just like sort of, float it your way and see how it lands. Coming back to our episode on deserving,
Hmm.
at the end of the episode, you really dug into this, and I love that you did. It's the reason I love your brain and having conversations with you. We clarified and realized that we approach deserving differently. You mentioned as a person, you deserve to choose whether you want to pursue things like self actualization, whether you want to choose to pursue things that help you take care of yourself more. And I shared that I don't see that as being a dynamic where deserving has a part. Either you choose to pursue actions that will help you self-actualize or you don't. And there's no deserving involved there. You just choose to or you don't. And choosing not to is also a choice, right? In this dynamic of coming out, you're coming at it from you choose to come out or not. And
Right.
there's like a kind of like a step to be taken there. Whereas for me, it's like, well, this is how I understand myself now, and I'm going to just be that way. There's no choice of like, do I tell my boss that I'm burnt out? It's the first thing I'm going to talk about in our next one-on-one. Hey, I'm realizing I'm towing the line with depression and I need to make changes in my job so that I can, one, like do my job here,
Yeah.
but also keep the rest of my life from falling apart. I didn't strategically hold that information and try to figure out how I share it with my boss. And, it's just like, no, this is what needs to happen. It's going to happen. So I'm wondering if maybe there's a parallel in the way that you operate between, you deserve to choose to do this, and me just being like, well, you either choose to do it or you don't. And then the coming out after self-realization, for me, it's like, I've realized this about myself and now this is who I'm going to be and how I'm going to live. And for you, it's like, I've realized this about myself and now I have to figure out how I tell the world about it.
I've come to realize that it's a great point that autonomy for me is like sneakily one of the most important things. And I never knew that about myself. Like in fact the opposite. I was like, I'm from a collectivist culture, like the Hungarians, we're just this little immigrant enclave. Turns out I really like autonomy and really need it. And when I don't have it, like I don't make good decisions about it because I get stubborn, resentful, or just like passive aggressive. It just
Yeah.
so it's important for me. It's important for me to have choice. And then pulling more broadly out to deserving, and I'm going to come back to coming out. People's behavior conflicts and abrogates somebody else's right right ability to seek their own safety. That's when, for me, the question of deserving comes in. So, like, if I fundamentally believe that I deserve to choose whether or not to come out, I get the choice. If somebody wants to choose to, they feel safe by handing out a list of all the queer people in their community, and that's safe to them, and I don't want that. Or even if it's like a much more positive take on it of just like, hey, here are all the like queer friendly businesses, but like I haven't come out as queer. So like say I'm a business owner and I haven't put that out there, but someone's like, oh, here's a list of queer friendly business owners. And you're like,
Mm,
whoa, that I wasn't ready for that one.
sure.
That's when the question of deserve comes in of do you, to what degree do you get to hold that right, that deserving of choosing to navigate your own autonomy and safety when it conflicts with somebody else's idea of how that might work?
Mhm.
So from a like coming out perspective choice, there is a real sense of safety at play in coming out as queer.
Yeah,
And so it's a choice to come out. And it's not always for me it was. And it's very much not always. And so if you're a person of color, if you have visible differences, if you are in any way demonstrative with your difference such that you don't really have a choice to like that is totally different from what I'm saying, what I'm sort of describing as the experience of being in this moment, this sort of like quiet moment of being able to say, oh, shit, I know something about me that is uncomfortable for me to admit and for it's going to be uncomfortable for other people. And I want to think about how to put that out there.
yeah,
And I want to protect my right to think about how to put that out there.
totally.
So that's how it comes up for me. But I mean, this is the whole passing privilege thing. I get the choice
Yeah, you get to choose when you share that and how you share it.
and how I share it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not
Hmm.
true for everybody.
Yeah,
I also really think that you and I'm fascinated by our personality differences because I have a feeling that there are some like really deeply ingrained wiring and brain and just who we are as humans naturally that make this a very different equation, different words and different orientations towards it.
totally. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you bring up the idea of safety, and the first thing that came to mind as you were bringing it up was I value truth over safety
Yeah.
any day.
Yeah.
Like, my truth is one of my like, top
Is
2.
safety.
It's yeah, like, so yeah, like, do Brene Brown's value exercise where you only get to pick 2 personal values that are, like, your 2 top priorities. One of them is truth, the other one's adventure. Neither is safe. Um, and the way that I
I
live
hope that
is
makes the
like
clips.
I sacrifice safety for those 2 things all the time. Yeah, maybe that leaves me I think that's part of the reason why a lot of my big picture worldview philosophies are like, "You're not safe, you can't know for sure, and you get to make up meaning as you go." Because, yeah, otherwise it would be hard to, like, handle that dynamic. Yeah,
I love that because this, like, just to sort of wrap this up, this is why this is such a fun conversation to have.
yeah.
That, like, that we're like, we have such different brains in it, but like, love that. I love that, like, truth is mine are growth and kindness, or my Brene Brown values.
Mhm.
Yours are truth and adventure. That's so cool. And neither
Yeah,
of them are safe. And this question of like coming out and it being a deliberate choice is like, I'm also shedding the identity of being somebody who has to like curate their words so that they're well received and said at the right time. And it's been a big part of like how I've gotten like survived my life. And
yeah,
so it's a big shedding.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, last
Thank you for
thoughts?
doing this. This is yeah, no, this is great. Thanks for giving me the platform. I can't wait for your episode.
Yeah,
I don't know what we're gonna talk about, but I have like 1,000,000 questions.
awesome. Yeah, yeah. We'll
Cool.
keep bouncing it back and forth.
Sounds good. Hey,
Okay,
friend, this is
bye.
good.